Hello, everyone. This is Demai. I'm the director of database for Alibaba Cloud. Today, I'd like to have this opportunity to discuss about Redis and how Redis will serve as cache for a relational database. For example, in this tutorial, MySQL. Let's begin. Let's first talk about what is Redis. So Redis, the whole name is Remote Directory Server. In reality, it is a key-way cache service that you leverage the memory to provide high throughput, low latency as a high concurrency environment. So we can simply put for a relational database, for example, that usually can provide 5,000 up to 10,000 QPS per node. And certainly relational database can do a lot of things, and they provide structured data and can do complex query using SQL language. On the other hand, Redis is a very simple cache layer that do one thing, but do one thing very good. It provides a key value data structure and cache the data in memory and be able to provide a fast data fetch. And depends on how you configure that, open source the Redis can provide roughly 100,000 QPS per node, which is about 10 times or more than regular relational database. So because of that, actually Redis ranked the top by DB Engine and at the top of the key store especially for the cache layer of the service. Okay, so I believe most people already know Redis. So let's talk about how that works and what it can do. So for example, we can do social chatting, and so every chat message can be like a comments that can be showed in memory layers, and it can also be shown that. Okay, let's talk about what Redis can do. Maybe that can be a common section for Facebook, or a ranking section for if we have a group of people who are kind of compete with each other to do how many steps exercise every day and doing a ranking. And it can provide as a social medium or the social circle and to do the social link connect each other, and can be also provide the profiling like my profile, like my name, my where I'm staying. So basically Redis, because it's a simple key, the key part can be a string and the value can be anything, maybe a JSON file that for profiling can be a simple string for the comments. So let's look at how Redis fit in an enterprise solution. So usually we have a solution that starts from client application, maybe some application running on your mobile phone, and it connected to the application server that can play an order and maybe doing some real-time analysis and for business data. And that data usually stay in a data store. Many cases is a relational database behind this application server. So that's okay until there are a lot of users and need to provide high concurrency and give high throughput and request low latency. Many cases it's millisecond or sub-millisecond. Because the database have to guarantee the safe of data and the persistence of the data, database have to save the data on disk. Even for SSD, it's slower, much slower than memory, and that latency cannot be reached to millisecond. Here come to the data cache layer. Redis is fitting into this cache layer, like the red that box in the middle of this PPT. What happens is they have a server that have high memory capacity. Redis will cache the data in this layer. So if an application need to fetch some data or write some data, they will, especially for the read, they will check the cache layer first. If the data already in the cache layer and still valid, so the data will be retrieved from the cache layer instead of go to the database. If not there, so certainly as all the cache, they have to send this request to database and return to the application. But at the same time, they will refresh the cache layer and put that result there. So next time, they can be retrieved much faster. So did for the write. So that's it's as simple as that. That's for the cache layer. And the Redis coming in did exactly for this reason. Okay, so in this case, we will just use this tutorial to write some simple application to demonstrate that. So in this case, we pretend we are in a high concurrency environment. A lot of users want to fetch the match result of Rose Ball games. So for who do not know Rose Ball, you can go to the Wikipedia and look at what the Rose Ball means for football fan in United States. We will look at the architecture design, the overall architecture design. So in this case, we will use Alibaba Cloud's Singapore region, which we will have 3 products in there. From the left is the ECS. This is the computation resource. You can imagine it's just a Linux virtual machine that we allocate to write some application, running some application on it. And in the middle is the Redis that provide also in the same region by Alibaba Cloud. For the database engine, here we use MySQL, which just because MySQL is one of the most popular open source relational database. And certainly this database can be any others like PostgreSQL, can be Alibaba's own PoloDB, and certainly can be other like the SQL Server, and can also be other data store, NoSQL data store. So here is what we have. And I'm just listing some this ECS MySQL's setup there. And for the ECS is a Linux machine. I use a very small machine because we don't really run much. And I do have a internet IP address because I want to connect it to my laptop here, which is the Mac machine. And both MySQL and Redis are inside the same VPC as ECS, but they have no external endpoint, so that that's a safety net that the user can only access this MySQL or Redis server through the ECS and cannot to access from the external internet. And here the MySQL is 8.0 and is also a small machine, and the maximum connection for this particular MySQL is 4,000 connections. And the Redis is Redis 5.0, and for this one, it has maximum connections 40,000, which is much higher than the MySQL machine. That is the whole purpose of having the Redis here. And for this Redis, I actually using multi-zone access. So I have both zone A and zone C, so provide high availability for the Redis. This is also a safety net for the high concurrency environment. In case something wrong for one of the zone, we will automatically switch to another one, which is still with that without the application interruption here. This is the simple architecture of this Redis. For this Redis, we have 8 proxies so that it can also taking care more connections, that how the connection with through, okay? And we do have this endpoint address here, which is only visible to the internal uh, machines that are within the same VPC. Okay, to write these Java applications, I want to list this environment. I will use the Linux machine, virtual machine on the ECS is the CentOS that I just imaged here. And I use Java 1.8 both for the compiler and also runtime virtual machine. And to write this application, I do leverage 3 jars here. First one is Redis, which is Java client application jar that for Redis. And I do have this JSON jar which comes from org.json is because I like to use the retrieve the MySQL result and first build it into a JSON object. And the last one is a very common one for the MySQL connections so that I can connect to MySQL MySQL code, MySQL server through my Java application.